Okay, so fair warning, I'm wearing Andy Anderson yellow and I'm feeling very auntie with a C, if you know what I mean. So I'm gonna be very unbearable today. Hey, welcome to my video. If you're from my Instagram, I love you, and if you're not from my Instagram, love you all the same. Welcome to Monthly Book Club, a series here on my channel where I tell you exactly what I read each month and exactly what I rated. Little disclaimer though, as always, before we begin, I'm never here to bash authors. I think they're geniuses. I'm never here to bash their works. I am here to tell you what I thought of books that I have purchased and read, but I'm not gonna be mean or snarky about it in any way, and I also don't want any of my potential low ratings to be the deciding factor on whether or not you will read a book, because obviously reading is so subjective, and the reason that I maybe didn't like it might just be the reason that you love it. And you know what? Both of those are valid, so as long as we're all respectful, I think we're all good here. I'm also gonna pop two little pictures on screen for you right now so that you can kind of understand why I rate things the way I rate them. Obviously, this is all always subject to just change and vibes, you know? But if that's the case, I will let you know. Now, with all of that being said, let's get right into it. So let's start off with Fragile Sanctuary. So first of all, the tropes here are brother's best friend, grumpy ex-sunshine. It is definitely a small town romance as well, and let me give you a little bit of the backstory. So it's about Rhodes and Anson, and Rhodes seems to be feeling attracted to Anson, but she knows that it's wrong because he's her brother's best friend, and not only that, he's the contractor here to fix and work on her house. He's also rude and grumpy, something that she is not, but admittedly, when something happens to her and her world sort of comes crashing down onto her, he's the one who saves her. Now, you would think that would be it, but Anson honestly has some tricks up his sleeves, and he has a little bit of a secret, and the question is, when she finds out his secret, will they come out of this unscathed? Honestly, who knows? Now let's get into the review. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to tell you that I rated this a 3-star read and a 2 chili pepper in regards to spice. So I always say this, but a 3-star read for me is a good, solid book, and that's exactly what this was. So the storyline here, definitely very interesting. There was one thing that happens that I'm not going to spoil for you, but I'm just going to say it was supposedly an accident, but then there's an insinuation that it's possibly not one, and that's what makes it even more exciting from the jump. So definitely a cool and interesting story. However, I was craving a bit more romance this day, and so because there was more emphasis on the storyline and not so much on the romance, that's why I gave it a 3-star. Now, with that being said, I do have to say that I still enjoyed the main couple, and I think the spice scenes were really good, but, and this is something that I always say, I just wish there was more yearning between the two of them, and then maybe it would have gotten a higher rating from me personally. But if you're not that into like the romance aspect, if you're more here for the storyline, that this will definitely be such a cool read for you. And now we can move on to book 2. Now, what I'm about to say here is going to be controversial yet brave, and I just want to reiterate that if you love this book, I love that for you, and I love that you love it, and I know a lot of people do. However, for me, this really didn't hit, and this book is Rein Me In. So this is another small town romance. It is also a cowboy romance, which I have read many of. But now, before I get into why this one wasn't what I wanted it to be, let me give you the premise. So this is about Blake and Gavin, and Blake never thought she'd return to her hometown after the death of her brother, but she in fact comes back because her mom gets injured and she wants to help out on the ranch. Now, Gavin, on the other hand, has recently just lost his dad. His brother is going through a little bit of an identity crisis, shall we say. So he's got all this debt, all these troubles. And when the two of them reunite once again, they're not the same people that they used to be. So this is a question of, will they squash their differences and like ride into the sunset or not? And that's sort of what I'm gonna leave you with. So, rating for me, I'm sorry, this was just a 2-star read. When it comes to spice, also 2 chili peppers, but overall, I really wanted to love this because I saw it recommended on BookTok so many times, and I just love the genre of a cowboy romance in general. It's always something that like gets me out of a reading slump, but this one for some reason just did not hit and sit right with me. I felt like it was like a slow burn, but without the burn in my opinion. Even the first kiss like happens at around 42%, and that's not a problem for me if the yearning is there, if there's like passion in the air, you know what I mean? But I just didn't feel much of that or much of romance between the main couple, so it was kind of lackluster. I also feel like there was more about the MC's individual struggles in their life individually rather than them as a couple and them like getting through it together. So it just didn't click with me. I also wasn't really rooting for them per se. In my eyes, the chemistry between them was just not there. And I also kind of have to say that by the end of the book, I really was skimming it a little bit. And again, if you love this, that's perfect. Obviously, valid opinion, but this for me missed the mark. Now we move on to a reread for me. We're talking about The Spanish Love Deception, a book that I know many people don't like and hate on, but I do not care because I love it. Let's talk about it. So first of all, enemies to lovers, workplace romance, those are some of the tropes, and this is what it's about. It's about Lina, who has to go back to Spain for her sister's wedding, and she ended up telling a little bit of a white lie that ended up really spiraling out of control. And the lie was that she's bringing a boyfriend to the wedding. Now, this is important because she knows that her ex-fiance is gonna be there, and she also knows her family, and she knows that if she shows up there single, it's just gonna be a miserable time. So she figured it would just be easier to say that she's bringing her boyfriend, and then that spiraled into a whole thing because she actually doesn't have a boyfriend, and now she needs to find one quickly. And her colleague from work, Aaron, offers up himself, and she would love nothing more to refuse, but at this point, she's desperate, and so she does end up taking him with her, and she does discover over there that he's not as bad in real life as she thought he was in the workplace. So this was one of the first books that I actually read on my Kindle, and at the time I remember reading it and I remember thinking, okay, this is a comfortable, good like rom-com, but I completely forgot what even happens at that point. I do have a little bit of a case of goldfish brain, and so I reread it again, and you know what, honestly, it's still such a comfortable like comfort read for me. I rated it 4 stars and 2 chili peppers. I like Lina because she's just funny and witty, and I like Aaron because he's very attentive. He picks up on everything that she likes immediately. And I usually say this, if I like the main characters individually, it's very easy to like them together as well. And that's definitely the case here. Now, one thing I will say that if you thought this was a slow burn, you were wrong because this is a slow burn, okay? The first kiss happens at like 79% or something crazy, 74 maybe, something like that. But you know what? Up until that point, the anticipation and the yearning is so good that it really doesn't matter, and it's completely not a deal breaker in my opinion. Also, tiny spoiler alert, but the man learned Spanish for her. Are you kidding? I was really rooting for them the whole way through, and reading this book feels like watching a rom-com. It's just so comfortable and I love it, and I will revisit it again at some point in the future. Now we must move on to my favorite read of the month, and that is Halfling. So Halfling is a cozy novel and paranormal romance, and it is about Sorcha and Orek. I think that's how you pronounce their names. Now Orek is half human, half orc, and Sorcha is a human captive captured by his clan, and when he finds this out, he literally loses it because his mother was a captive in the clan as well, and he saw her struggle and he couldn't bear to let it happen again with Sorcha, and so he decides that he's gonna go against everybody and let her go. Obviously for her it's hard to trust him, but she doesn't have a choice but letting him help her and letting her escape. So for me, this was definitely a 5-star read. Yes it was. If you like SJM or if you like Ice Planet Barbarians, you are going to eat this book up for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and all of your snacks, because that's literally what happened to me. And as far as smut goes, this is between a 2 and a 3 chili pepper for me personally, because there is a lot of smut and it's very good. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's talk about the main characters first. So Orek is definitely a gentle giant, so thoughtful, so kind and shy, and Sorcha is definitely determined and strong. And so I loved sort of reading about that dynamic. I loved them as a couple and individually. The book overall makes you feel like you're going on a journey, like you're going on an adventure, and it has definitely warm, cozy blanket vibes. And this was a fun little bonus that I was not expecting. Somewhere along the way, Sorcha and Orek meet an unexpected friend who happens to be a pet raccoon, and I loved that plot line. It was so fun, and I also loved the raccoon so much. So I was obsessed that the author did that. I also want to say that the anticipation between the two main characters was so delicious. The first kiss happens at around 40-something%, but by that point, I was literally kicking my feet, giggling, foaming at the mouth. Let me read you an actual note that I wrote on this book, and I quote, I said, "I am feral." And you know what? It's true. I love how they're both so desperate for each other, but they can't see it. And the love and lust admissions in this book go crazy. And if Mr. Darcy has taught us anything, is that a good admission of love will fix anything and mend any wound. I promise you, Orek's admissions are literally poetry. The only maybe tiny ding I have is that I felt like the book was just a tad bit long-winded, but really I still rated it 5 stars because I was still hooked all the way through. So this was definitely a super fun read for me, my favorite read of the month, and I will be keeping my eye on this author from now on. We have to talk about On the Line, and this book is definitely a dark contemporary romance, and it is about James and Ozzy. So James ends up working as a server in like a high-class restaurant to support her dreams of becoming an artist because her father literally gave her an ultimatum and told her it's either stay on the straight and narrow or I'm cutting you off if you decide to pursue her art. And obviously she has to live her dreams, but that means that she needs to get a job to support herself. And on this job, the one silver lining is the line cook that's kind of like a court jester, always there to make her laugh. And the attraction between them is undeniable. Now, one thing about James that I did not let you in on is that she is in a long-term relationship, but her boyfriend, I thought after watching Game of Thrones that there would never be a more annoying character than Joffrey. And then now I'm watching House of the Dragon and Sir Crispy is there. He really is Joffrey's second coming. And then this man, her abusive boyfriend, I would venture to say that he's just as annoying as the both of them. So I clearly do not like him at all. But anyways, I'm getting sidetracked now, girly. James ends up breaking up with her long-term boyfriend, and so she's not obviously ready for anything serious with the line cook Ozzy, but they do decide to explore their attraction, shall we say. Now for me, this is a 4-star read, and on the spicy scale, I don't think I've ever rated a book as high as this, except maybe for Haunting Adeline, but this book gets 4 chili peppers. Let's talk about it. So Ozzy is definitely very fun and playful right off the bat, and it's so easy to be on his side, especially when the main female character's boyfriend and his best friend even are royal assholes. They're just terrible people overall. So obviously I was on Ozzy's side from literally page 2. One thing I do have to say about Ozzy and this whole book, okay, is should you choose to read this, should you choose to embark on this adventure, you will never look at a Snickers the same way again. It's some of the things that happen in this book, okay, are pretty debaucherous, but in such a creative way. I was literally reading some of it going, how does one come up with this stuff? There was also a lot of experimentation when it comes to the kinkier side, and I did enjoy reading about that as well. One thing that I loved was that eventually Ozzy starts pining over her while she still wants something casual, and I just love that because I don't read about that very often. There are also cute little recipes at the end of this book, so definitely this is something that I was not expecting at all. I just thought this was a regular line cook romance or whatever, but nothing about this book is regular at all, and I would read it again, and I would recommend it to a friend, and now I'm recommending it to you guys. But yeah, that's the last book. Well, it's not the last book. It's the last book that I'm going to talk about here today. I have actually read like 3 or 4 more books in June. I clearly had a lot of time on my hands, but that's all that we're going to work through today. Do let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these and how you like them. But also, if you made it this far, thank you so much. And if you like this video, then please consider liking, subscribing, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!